What's happening, everybody? Matt here, but you can call me Matub. Welcome to Hottest Take of the Week, show where I look at dumb stuff on the internet and we talk about it. And I would like to take this moment to apologize
to absolutely nobody. The double champ does what the he wants.
That's right. I was completely right with my Taysom Hill takes. I don't care, Mr. Guy in my comments who's wearing a Taysom Hill jersey who left me a dissertation about his passing ability. I don't care, everyone who ever hated Ted Thompson. I don't care, all the DVOA haters that have still in my mentions for whatever reason. I won. Taysom Hill caused a fumble. Well, I should say Zadarius Smith caused a fumble on Taysom Hill that was the single biggest win probability change in the game. Saints went from like 60% to like less than 40%. It was beautiful. Suck it. Suck my entire left nut. Okay, I suppose I should probably reel it back in a little bit. We got some football to talk about. You'll also notice that my setup is a little bit different. The plosive rejection on my microphone was just awful, so I got this little windscreen here. Also got a ring light so you can see my beautiful face better. Also, you can see my James Jones jersey in honor of the fact that we have 0 good, healthy wide receivers right now. But we'll get on that later. Okay, so like I said, Taysom Hill was a big reason that the Packers won. He had the offensive pass interference. He had third down where he threw short of the sticks. And then he had the almighty fumble. Taysom Hill and his $16 million a year contract was a big reason the Saints lost. And it was glorious. And I am going to bask in my correctness for as long as is necessary. Because I'm still, to this minute, getting hate about that. In fact, that is the most disliked episode of Hottest Take of the Week in the 2 years that I've been doing this. With that said, the takes this week are, wow, I wouldn't say they are aplenty. Everyone is fighting over the exact same thing, and it's been happening all week. On September 29th, my friend and coworker, Badger Noonan, released an article called Why the Packers Still Should Have Drafted a Wide Receiver. And it is a pretty dang good article. Paul is a very good writer. He gets a little into the stats on things. He's a baseball sabermetrics head. He's the guy who introduced me to the concept of advanced statistics in football, and he's the reason that I even care about these things in the first place. Paul has been getting mercilessly ragged on for that article ever since it dropped. And this was even before the Allen Lazard injury. He had some pretty good reasons, and a big reason was that Marquez Valdes-Scantling is bad. We have seen Marquez put up some interesting catches. He had a couple deep shots. However, he has inconsistent hands. He's been unreliable. Also, we're talking about a Packers team that's played against 2 of the worst secondaries in football. There are no functional DBs on the Vikings, and the Lions do nothing but play man in a very predictable manner. They're easily carved up by Aaron Rodgers. Against the Saints, you saw a complete reliance on the scheme. Reliance on the scheme works to a point until it's figured out. Think about someone like a really good example to think about would be the 2013-2014 Bears in Mark Trestman. He had a pretty interesting scheme that was difficult to figure out at first, and the Bears did very well in 2013. After the scheme was figured out, the Bears got murder stomped in 2014. That is what people are afraid of happening with LaFleur. If you rely entirely on the scheme and not necessarily be able to rely on your players outside of it, you are going to run into problems. The fact is, this draft class was one of the deepest in terms of starting caliber wide receivers, maybe ever. Should the Packers have gone after a wide receiver then? Yeah, probably. Instead, they drafted a running back in the second round who is currently 4th on the depth chart. You could say that that is a pick that is going for the future, that maybe Aaron Jones leaves, maybe Jamal Williams gets hurt, you have your power back. You have your heir apparent at, man, I say heir apparent a lot. You have your heir apparent at running back. It's a future-proof pick. Okay, well, what about the right now? Right now, the truth is you have, before the season, Alan Lazard was considered someone who was ascending. We did not know that he would be literally, according to DVOA, the best receiver in football. But right now that doesn't matter because he's out for an unknowable amount of time with a core muscle injury, which I've heard can be anywhere from 3 to 8 weeks, which that sucks. Having to have core muscle surgery and trying to come back during the season is going to suck. We might not see the same Lazard. You never know how things are going to turn out. Just like draft picks, I know. Devontae Adams has routinely missed little time here and there over the last few years. And in the 5 games without Devontae Adams, the Packers are 5-0. So it's hard to say, without Devontae, the whole thing falls apart. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, without Devontae, you have to rely on someone else. In fact, Marquez brought up the fact that he was getting the Devontae coverage against the Saints, and it was quite difficult for him to deal with. And Marquez was pretty quiet in that game. So obviously the Devontae coverage on someone who isn't Devontae is going to work. So if you lose Devontae for any inordinate amount of time, you're going to have Lazard. That's fine. If you lose both at the same time, you are now relying on Marquez Valdez-Scantling and who's left? Darius Shepard and Malik Taylor, I think. There are currently 5 rostered wide receivers. Now, I'm hearing the argument of you can't go after Goot because there's no way he could have known that 4 of the top 5 wide receivers were going to be gone. He went out and he got Funchess, and yeah, okay. Funchess opted out, and that sucks for Packers. It's good for Funchess. Want to protect your health and safety, and that's fine. I'm totally okay with that. I'm never going to say a bad word about any player who opts out or has opted out. The thing is last year we didn't know if Jace Sternberger was going to be any good. We didn't know if Rob Tunyon was going to get any better. And we knew exactly what we had in Mercedes Lewis, who completely stunned the whole world with his pirouette, not an OPI touchdown against the Saints. They say that the offense of LaFleur can run through more heavier personnel, through more tight ends, through more running backs. And that's all well and good. But without a true number 1 receiver on the field, they're going to be able to just absolutely sell out and stop everyone who isn't the number 1 receiver. When you've got Marquez Valdez-Scantling on the X, no one is going to take him seriously in the same way that they would take Devontae and now Lazard seriously. Sure, you can move Aaron Jones out, and he's a very good receiver, and you can move Tyler Ervin out, and he's a very good receiver, but those should just be stopgaps. There's a reason that those roster spots exist. I'm hearing a lot of, okay, well, how would a rookie wide receiver help the Packers be 3-0 any better? Oh, they're going to score 40 points on the Saints. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not talking about the 3 games that happened, specifically because, as I already mentioned, 2 of them were against terrible, terrible secondaries. I'm talking about the future. I'm talking about later on in the season when people have the formula to play against Matt LaFleur. We saw this in 2011. The Chiefs beat the Packers and showed the Giants how to do it. I'm afraid of something like that happening. If you don't have multiple reliable targets outside of scheming people open, as right now they're saying they're college open, without people being schemed wide open, when someone figures it out, it's going to be a problem. There are a lot of problems on this Packers team. I keep bringing up 2011 because it's a perfect parallel. In 2011, the Green Bay Packers finished first in offensive DVOA and 26th in defensive DVOA. Right now, they're second in offensive DVOA and 28th in defense. There's some argument as to whether or not that works really well because DVOA calculates garbage time differently than you would based on the eye test. A really good Archon 14 on Acme Packing Company talked about if you look at garbage time as a team has 5% or less chance of winning, outside of that, the Packers defense is pretty dang good. But with that said, maybe instead of reaching for a running back in the second round, you reach for a wide receiver. What if instead of A.J. Dillon, who, once again, do not get me wrong, I love A.J. Dillon. I love agile power backs. AJ had this great play where he was running right into a stack box. He got hit 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage, did an awesome barrel roll, and brought it up for 4 yards. I think the future is very bright for AJ Dillon. However, I think that the Packers would be better off this season and possibly in the future, but I definitely think this season, had they drafted someone like Chase Claypool. So a lot of this is predicated on not drafting Jordan Love, not moving up in the first round, having more in the tank in the lower rounds to be able to either move around or draft someone who fits their draft position a little better. Chase Claypool went shortly before A.J. Dillon. Also, Antoine Whitfield Jr. went shortly before A.J. Dillon. I really, really liked him. And Packer safeties aren't exactly great this year, but we're not talking about safeties right now. We're talking about wide receivers. At the time that the Green Bay Packers could have originally picked, they could have taken someone like T. Higgins, Michael Pittman, or Laviska. I can never say that name. Laviska Shenault. They also could have taken the already phenom in Kansas City running back Clyde Edwards. Can't say his name either. You know what? Screw it. So I think a lot of the hate that's going on is that caveat. If they didn't draft Jordan Love, they could have done this. And I am not exactly the best source on this because I never liked Love as a prospect. I'm hoping against hope that 3 years from now, I'm going to be eating my words and Love is going to be leading the Packers into a deep playoff run. I truly hope that happens. I don't see it happening. So yeah, I'm going to say err on the side of like, man, if they didn't draft Love, they could have done all these other things. Why not reach a little bit for the wide receiver who's got the good measurables and has decent college film? It's so the thing that I'm taking the most issue with is the vitriol that's being spit at the people who thought that the Packers should have drafted a wide receiver. This was a big wide receiver draft. It was a great time to pick up more wide receiver talent. This is before Allen Lazard got hurt. This camp existed, and I was definitely one of them. After the Allen Lazard injury, I think it makes even more sense in hindsight. But football isn't played in hindsight. The thing that's bothering me is the amount the people are digging in their heels on both sides of this argument. You are getting very large presences on social media doing the thing that I got mad about 2 years ago that is generally considered a bad thing to do. For example, the man just goes on Twitter and reacts and just says whatever comes to his mind and then proceeds to quote tweet anyone that disagrees with him and attempt to dunk on them. Be like, yeah, great job, Ryan, quote tweeting that guy with 7 followers and a picture holding a fish. You sure got him. The thing I got upset at Ryan Wood about 2 years ago is still happening with big people on Twitter, with people who have large platforms outside of Twitter. They are doing everything they can to dunk on people who differ from their opinion. Everyone is digging in on both sides, and it's getting rough. Guys, we root for the same team. Stop going after each other with this kind of aggressiveness. It's gross. Who do we think we are? Are we the friggin' Bears? Are we Bears fans who are going to spend the offseason arguing over which of their terrible quarterbacks to start? We are fans of the Green Bay Packers. Be better. That took a turn for the serious, didn't it? Well, guys, that's going to do it for me. The Packers are the 7.5 point favorites against Atlanta with the over-under at 58. Hammer the over. Take the Packers to cover. As always, I'm Matt, but you can call me Matub. And go, Pack, go.